The year is 2021. During the pandemic, many films, large and small, had to completely halt production. This didn't stop a small team in Nevada who opted to use the limitations of the pandemic to its advantage in making Horror in the High Desert, a mockumentary horror film that chronicles the chilling disappearance of Gary Hinge. Welcome to Spooky of the Week.
We're back! Time for Spooky of the Week! That's right, we're back, everybody, and it's spooky season. This week we watched Horror in the High Desert.
Who recommended it?
Keegan did.
This year we decided to have a theme.
This is true.
So for this year, the theme is horror documentaries,
Yep.
or mockumentaries, whatever you want to call them, or found footage.
Are we going to be doing that the whole time?
We kind of talked about it.
We're going to do that the whole... That is for sure. That wasn't it.
Well, we all agreed on that.
The pick this week was Horror in the High Desert. It is a film I randomly stumbled across, and that's
Keegan
the
doesn't
first
plan
one.
to watch movies. He always stumbles into them. He always is flipping, and then he's like, oh, this one's called Sheep.
Keegan is like one of those little animals that goes around sniffing the ground for little bugs and stuff that it can eat, but like that for movies.
Well, I mean, that's how I found Lair the White Worm.
Movies
Or Inseminoid, or Nightwish.
This is what I'm saying.
It is a fake documentary. It's actually inspired by real events about a hiker who goes missing in the Nevada desert, the high desert. His friends and family and how the search for him went, and the different unusual things start occurring as they investigate deeper and deeper. The last 20 minutes made me shit my pants. And then upon rewatching, it still didn't help. I still shit my pants.
Soiled 2 pairs of pants.
Yeah, I spoiled 2 pair of pants, so...
Keegan's also still, like I said, over 30, so incontinence is just one of those things that happens.
So after that, I was like, you know what? That's a pretty good movie. I gotta give it a recommend to people.
This is an interesting subgenre to start off doing a theme to, because most of the movies that are fake documentaries are really bad. Like, horrible.
Yes. That's why I'm like, we're going to do that the whole time.
Yeah, so I was a little skeptical, but Keegan is not easy to scare. So when we were talking about it, that was like the selling point, was he was like, the end actually made me shit my pants. And so I was like, okay, if Keegan's saying the end made him shit his pants, that there's probably something there, even if the rest of the movie's not great.
Like most things Keegan recommends, I did not pay attention to what he was saying, and I forgot what he talked about up until like maybe 5 minutes.
That's an
before I started
intentional
watching
process, right?
No.
Like, you're not choosing to forget what Keegan says?
No, it's usually the title. It's Keegan recommending it, and then the title associated with it is always the same kind of title.
Yeah.
Forgettable.
Yeah.
Forgettable trash is all I hear whenever Keegan is like, oh, you should watch this one movie. It's called Killer Flea. It's like, it's all forgettable trash. It's the same thing. Horror on the High Desert, same thing. It's like Horror on the High Desert.
We make fun of Terror on the Prairie for
Terror
that
on the
kinda-
Prairie for the same thing.
It's like
Keegan's also only seen trash horror movies. He's not seen a single good one.
I've seen good ones.
You've seen like
Tremors.
That is not a horror movie.
He's seen Reanimator.
I've seen Reanimator.
He's seen
And name a good movie. A good horror movie.
Have you seen The Exorcist?
He's seen Attack of the Bird creature thing.
He's seen Large Worm.
Large worm.
The Empty Man, The Tall Man. I've seen both of those.
The White Man in the White Room.
So I was the only person here other than Sam Slade saw Lake Mungo before this movie, so I had the expectation of Lake Mungo going in. But other than that, I had never really seen a ton like this. Maybe a handful of things
That's
like
just
this.
being
So
a fake documentary horror movie.
No,
There's
no,
a difference
no.
between found footage and fake documentary.
this theme acknowledges both. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is true.
And this movie kind of blurs that line a little bit. Like, it's a documentary, and then there's elements of found footage sprinkled throughout.
Once I started watching it, I was like, this movie's actually kind of good. It's a fake documentary in a very grounded sense. This seems very believable, which makes sense once I looked into it and found out it's inspired by true events. There actually was an influencer, I don't remember if they were a YouTube star, that would go out in the desert and look at different abandoned structures and things like that. There was like a mine that he found, and he said, oh, my next trip, I'm gonna go into it. And he never came back.
and then the Hills Have Eyes people found him and they ate him all.
And so there's no way of finding out where he went. So this was kind of inspired by that. One of the things I really noticed was about halfway through, no one is on screen with another human being. It bothered me. I checked it afterwards and found out it was made during the pandemic. So
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
They couldn't have actors on screen together. That being said, I thought the performances were pretty good for this. Like, the sister's performance was really good. Some of the other performances weren't fantastic. The private investigator.
That guy was horrible. Throw up some of that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's when the sister came in, and she's a real piece of shit. She fucked everything up. I hate her. We're friends now. But yeah, no.
If they had made that a character thing with him, like if he was just like wooden, like detective man, and he's just down to the facts, and that was like his character, it could have worked. But it just felt like a wooden performance.
Yeah, his dialogue didn't match that of his character.
The way they introduce the fucking detective is also super weird, because before he says a single line of dialogue, it just cuts to him standing in the middle of a field. He just shoots 2 shots. I was like, who the fuck is this? What is happening? And it's like,
he's firing what was his gun.
Am a, and then it's like he says something like, I'm a private detective, and it cuts to him looking over the vast wilderness, and he's like, yep,
High desert.
the high desert's very beautiful, but it is also very dangerous. And it sounded like a comedy line.
The high desert, as you can see, it's very beautiful. It's very majestic, has mountains, valleys, plains, forests. It has it all. But it's also quite dangerous and very unforgiving.
He reminded me of the cops from Suburban Sasquatch.
My office will release information to the press when the time's right.
It was something really special to him. And to see them go from loving him to bullying him, calling him a loser, a liar, and putting him down, it was really sad to see.
That guy was ruining the movie.
Oh yeah, every time it cut to him, I was like, is the guy holding a script right off camera?
My second viewing, I noticed this in one of the interviews with the sister. I could see the reflection of her phone on her glasses.
If we're talking about performances, I would say to me they felt pretty hit or miss.
Yeah, it was hit or miss for sure.
I think a lot of them suffered from, it felt like they were just reading off of a teleprompter. A little bit of the, like what I like to call the knows.
I could just hear her inside Gary's room.
Thinking, we're going to tell him, look, keep an eye out for this second grader.
And then when their parents did pass away,
and
when people don't know what to say, they'll fill it with filler words, and a popular one is or or stuff like that. So I noticed a lot of that, like and then repeating words because people are trying to think of something to say, so they'll kind of repeat the first part of their sentence.
Gary's fine.
Gary, like that actor is what grounds the whole movie to me.
Gary's voice distracted me my first time watching it.
A lot of people have been following the blog and new to the blog and been saying I'm just trying to copy Naked and Afraid. And as you can tell, I'm not naked or afraid out here.
I believe that actor talks like that.
I think
it actually works really well for the character. It actually really fits the character and helps ground the performance, as you said. They mentioned his dog, Tuca. Mm-hmm. And they mentioned that he would always go hiking with his dog. He loved his dog. He was super close with it. Yeah. The dog never appears in a single hiking video.
No. Yeah.
He never leaves Tuca. He always takes the dog with them, so I thought that was kind of weird.
There's a good amount of things like that in the movie for me where I'm just like, why are you even bringing this up? Because it doesn't go anywhere and doesn't matter.
I think it's purely just to like build the mystery or whatever, to be like, oh, and he didn't bring his dog.
See, that's my biggest issue with the movie, is that they shouldn't be building for a mystery because there isn't a mystery.
Yeah. By
the end of it, you're like, oh, all these people in the interview knew exactly what happened because they all saw the footage.
Yeah.
But I don't really feel that watching it. They're just like unraveling the mystery with us, and it just feels unorganic. Yeah. Instead of it being like most documentaries where they all know what happened, it's like you can tell that the director / editor is shaping the story to be more mysterious than just the actors being like, I'm not going to tell you yet because that's going to ruin the movie or whatever.
Right.
And there's so much in there that is just filler that doesn't matter. The mystery is so much more simple. There's no payoffs for anything like that.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like a real documentary. It feels like a movie made to feel like a documentary as opposed to actually feeling like a documentary. I think it would have served a lot if they had structured it more like a Netflix docuseries on like a true crime thing. There's a lot of repeated lines, I felt.
Gary was 2 days late. That's not Gary. Gary would never leave Tuca that long, especially knowing that Simon had to go out of town.
I first knew something was off when he asked me to watch his dog Tuca before he went out on one of his trips. And he never leaves Tuca. He always takes the dog with him, so I thought that was kind of weird. When he didn't come back after 2 days. I thought that was really strange.
That's when I knew that there was something wrong and I needed to get there. So I packed up and left Panaca and headed straight to Ruth. I went to Ruth from Panaca.
The first hour of the movie is like, it's just like nothing. Like I almost turned it off. Like I almost was like, I will watch this some other time. I will watch this in the morning.
These were multiple day like survival excursions.
Gary became so obsessed with survivalism.
To me, Gary's more of a survivalist. You have a phone call. You have to take this phone call.
You don't even know that he's a YouTuber until like 45 minutes in.
Yeah.
And I was like, I told Kevin, I was like, oh, the movie just got interesting. It hadn't been interesting for 45 minutes to me because it's all like, oh, he's the greatest hiker. He would never go hiking without his dog. It's just like that same information for 45 minutes. And then it's like, oh, he had a YouTube channel that nobody knew about. And I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting.
You can easily cut like 7 to maybe 10 minutes.
No, and I definitely felt that on the second watch where they kept like talking about how experienced of a hiker was, how experienced of a hiker he was.
The first 30 minutes is just like Gary wouldn't have gone out in the woods and not come back. He just wouldn't have done that. That's the first 30 minutes. Every character saying that 100 times.
Did you ever watch that documentary on Netflix, the one about the woman that got wrongfully accused of murdering somebody?
Yeah.
And in the Netflix documentary series, they interview like the police chief, and he still to this day believes that she did it.
Devo far ricordare che c'erano dei comportamenti totalmente inspiegabili, totalmente irrazionali. Questo non c'è dubbio.
That is used as like a point of like, you know, conflicting narrative where he's saying, oh, fuck you, you don't know what you're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about. And at the end of it, he still believes it. Where I think a problem with this is that by the end of the narrative, everyone's on the same page. They kind of set up
they kind of set it up with the roommate and the sister.
Roommate and the sister, but by the end of it, they both know the truth. And at the point that they're giving the interviews, both characters would know
and
that there's no conflict there, so why even talk about it?
It was just kind of too clear for me where it was just like, okay, they just have a few cards and they don't want to show me, and they're just not going to show me.
Yeah.
And it made me just like lose interest in all of the nonsense before.
Some of it kind of felt like out of order, like in terms of what you want to hear earlier. It's like, okay, you should say all this stuff about him at the very beginning and he would never get lost, and then boom, timeline, what starts to happen. But they start to introduce, okay, so here's how we got lost.
Some graphics,
anyway, it's like, oh, here's how we got lost. Anyway, he would never get
documentary
lost.
thing.
I
don't know if we want to get into spoilers.
We'll keep it out of spoilers for
okay,
now.
We'll keep it out of spoilers.
I do ultimately think that I would recommend this to a certain type of person. So for that person, I wouldn't want to spoil what the ending is like.
I wouldn't recommend this to a general audience.
No.
It's too boring.
It's not boring in a good way.
Yeah.
No,
like
it's just boring.
I just felt like I was streets ahead of the movie, where like not even in like I know what's gonna happen. You're just kind of like, guys, you can't keep saying this. You can't keep treading the same ground. Like
it would have been better with more like character conflict in terms of like Simon the roommate actually having something else that adds to the mystery, where it's like, oh, maybe he was involved in drugs, or
maybe the mystery wouldn't be solved yet. Maybe they had not gotten the hand in a box, like, or whatever. It wasn't found in a box, was it? How was the
backpack?
Hand? They found it was in his backpack. That's pretty.
They found it.
In his backpack.
A couple was hiking, and when they woke up in the morning, Gary's backpack was found on a shovel in the middle of their campsite with his severed hand around the camera.
All that stuff was good. I would have that be an event that takes place while the documentary is being made. So that way, before like all the setup, you can have characters
like after they filmed the interviews already,
conflict, like be what's driving it. So like the sister could be like, oh, the roommate did it. He clearly did it. They were gay or something.
Gary was gay, and in small towns
that didn't go anywhere.
Yes, and that was one of those other things of like that's
there's so many things I've forgotten already because I'm just like, none of that matters.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you could have done with that, and I think that the movie just kind of meanders for a solid 50 minutes until something new is introduced, which is that he had a YouTube channel. And then when they do announce that he has a YouTube channel, the detective has like one of the most confusing bits, because everyone, his sister and his roommate, are both like, I had no idea he had a YouTube channel. He was just always filming videos and giving people advice on how to survive in the wilderness. I didn't know he had a YouTube channel. And his sister didn't know about it. And then it cuts to the detective guy, and he is like, ah, yes, Gary did have a YouTube channel, and it meant the world to him. He would look at those comments every single day, and it meant so much to him. And I was like, "How do you know this? You're like the private investigator. Shouldn't his roommate or his sister know how much it means to them?" But both of them.
Yeah, apparently, he was the most popular man on the internet.
Yeah,
he had 50,000 followers.
Yeah, he had 50,000 followers, and the detective is the one that knows how much it meant to him, and not any of the people close to him.
Not a single person in Gary's life knew about his blog, which was really shocking considering the fact that he had 50,000 followers. That blog was everything to him. He really admired them.
I just assumed as it was going like, oh, he films them for something. He's got a blog. I didn't think it was like he was like he had 50,000 followers and like had like a little following or whatever. But I was like, he like documents and stuff, and they mention it. Oh, he makes his little videos.
It also kind of annoyed me that they kept calling it a blog, like elderly people, like that is what like my dad says.
It kept making me think, oh, this was made back in 2006. But but no, it was made like a year ago.
Yeah,
it's not a blog, Dad. It's a vlog.
It's a vlog. Or would you recommend it overall, and who would it be to? If you
to almost nobody. Honestly, like I think the ending is awesome. I think the ending's very spooky. And if you're looking for just a really spooky movie, like it takes up almost no time. Like the movie's only an hour and 20 minutes or whatever, and it will spook you. But for the most part, it is just incredibly boring and not very well made. And yeah,
I have a solid recommendation. Horny people that want a spooky movie, that it really does not matter if you end up like making out or like fiddling around for the beginning part of the movie.
Just get her done before before the hour mark, because
for teenagers,
yeah. Because as long as you can finish everything up in like an hour, then in an hour, very easy.
And then just watch the ending,
and then just watch the ending. Because I don't think I would recommend it to a general person. Like if they were just like.
I'd say if you're a horror fan, you like horror movies, watch the movie.
Yeah, yeah. I think the ending.
You're trash eating people.
I think the ending kind of makes a lot. I think the ending kind of makes.
I'll say it.
I think the ending.
I think the ending
kind of.
I think the ending.
Finish the sentence, dude. I want to hear more fireworks.
I think the ending kind of makes a lot of the rest of it worth it, but I'm a psychopath, and I also watched it with Kevin. Maybe watch it with a friend, or don't. It might make it spookier. Maybe fast forward. Don't be afraid to fast forward. That's what if you're gonna watch it, don't be afraid to fast forward. Like it's fine. The first hour, you really don't learn anything. It could have been a 25-minute short film.
I wouldn't say 25 because, that first hour is boring, but it kind of sets it up and grounds it. And so it's that grounding which makes that last part spooky.
I would. I'll concede on that. Not 25.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I agree. It should be shorter.
I'd recommend if you like horror movies and you like being scared. I don't want to say for sure, but I think this might be like the actual like spookiest time we've had out of Spooky of the Week, because a lot of the times the Spooky of the Weeks we recommend, they're good, or they're you know what I mean, or this one's very gory, or this one has great effects. Right? It's not like scary.
Yeah,
it's not like
Kevin and I were little girls when we were
absolutely yes.
If you are a hardcore horror fan, if you enjoy watching like kind of obscure or kind of a little bit stranger horror movies, I would definitely give it a shot.
Or indie. We've reviewed movies that are on YouTube before. I will say if this was on YouTube, I don't know why this changes so much in my head, but it does. If this was on YouTube, I feel like my thoughts would be a little bit different, because it's like, oh, that's a movie on YouTube. You know, it's a little bit more homeless.
The ending's starting, and I'm like, why are you doing this at night?
Yeah, no,
why did Gary do it at night?
This is why
they explain it.
Yeah, they did not give a good enough explanation. They were like, well, dude, he doesn't want to be seen. It's like he
was spooked. Where he's like, if I go during the day, it's literally just me standing out in the middle of the fucking desert in the day.
That is better than sitting out in the middle of the desert in the night where you can't see.
He figured the person wouldn't be able to see him as easily at night, which is true. The guy did not see him as easily at night.
Well, and I honestly, I think this is where I think the movie needed maybe a little bit more in that last sequence. Like, what if he had a plan? Like, oh, last time the guy came around my tent at night, I'm going to wait to see what happened. Like, if it's something like that where he knows that there's someone lurking around at night.
What I wanted from the ending now retrospectively, having that ending like be more than just what it was. Like, that feeling and like the discovery of it, but then having that actually be its own story.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, now you see what happened with Gary, and it's like literally Act 1, Act 2, Act 3.
Yeah.
You know?
I get what you
Which
mean.
is what I wanted. Instead of, it's still cool. It was still an entertaining, spooky ending, but I finally got into the movie at the end. You know what I mean? And I was like, no, keep going, keep going.
Because we had like a solid 15 to 20, maybe even 30 minutes of people talking about how horrifying the footage was. When it got there was almost like it's like John Wick. When people are talking about how badass John Wick is when he finally starts killing
Also,
people.
you don't know what this movie's gonna do.
Yeah, you don't know what this movie's gonna do.
You don't know where
Keegan
it's
said
gonna
that
go.
it's scary, so like with all that buildup of just like they're talking about how terrifying it is. There's an like I think
I will give the movie that where like they did like most of the time when stuff like that happens, like dude, you will not believe what happened. It's the craziest thing ever, and then you watch it and you're just like, I've seen this in other things.
Yeah.
This isn't that crazy.
Right.
Because everyone said the last 20 minutes good. I went into it. I was expecting a Bagul.
Yeah.
I was expecting a werewolf or a witch or a skinwalker because that's really popular right now.
See, that's where I'm really glad where the movie went, because I was sitting there hoping, oh, please don't be a Bagul, because what I think is so scary that is not in a lot of movies is just like whenever I look, like if you're driving down the road at night,
just
like
those.
you look out, like if you're driving like long distance somewhere and you're just in the middle of nowhere, you look out in the hills and stuff, and I'm just like, if a dude just walked out, like just some crazy person just walked out, you just lived 10 miles off the road.
Yeah.
You would never be seen. And you wouldn't know what he's up to. It's just like there's some sort of creepy idea. I don't know if it just affects me specifically or whatever. I don't really know how to explain it, but like the idea of somebody like they're organically human, but they're not human mentally anymore.
Yeah.
Because they've just separated themselves from humanity and like being like alone and just like stewing in your own.
That's why The Hills Have Eyes is so good.
Oh yeah.
But I also like that for as long as they could, they toyed with you that it could be anything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
For literally as long as possible, they kept it up as you don't know what it is. What if it is a Bagul?
They try to ground the movie so much that if they had a supernatural or an extraordinary thing at the end, it would kind of remove all that grounding work they've done where you go, oh, this is not realistic. And then your brain just kind of separates because you're like, this is not in reality anymore.
It's good that they ultimately played to something more real because it just matched the messier aspects of the earlier part of the movie more instead of just, it's a Bagul. There it is.
I was gonna say additionally they ground it. It's a person, but it's also just not like it's not just old man. You know, like he still looks creepy.
Also, like, what the fuck was that sound? Like, I assume it's like a record player he has or something.
And then the creepiest like song that plays.
The idea that is so creepy with that to me is like they're not like evil. They're just like they're not. It's like coming across an animal that used to be human. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the other thing,
I didn't kill him because he's like I like to kill people. It's like
what does that guy get up to? What does he do? They never explain it, and that
it's
makes
like
it creepier.
That sort of like that all the like stuff with like the bare feet and like the car moving makes that creepier. When that was all going on, I was just like when they're like, oh, and someone moved his car, and I was like, Gary is not alive.
Someone barefoot moving his car.
It's like I'm sorry, you're not alive.
You're not alive anymore.
And then when he's talking about like he's like talking about like, oh yeah, when he was in the tent, like he gets up the next morning and there's barefoot tracks around his campsite after he saw that creepy house. And I'm like,
see, if they would have had something like that in the third act, where it's just like boom, 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 like moment, instead of one big moment, you know?
Yeah, no, I get you.
Built up a little bit more.
Built up.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, overall, A+. A+. Perfect.
the ending definitely carries it.
The ending makes it bearable.
Well, I think we're being a little easy on it because this is how spooky and well executed the ending is that most of the first hour and minute of the movie is god awful. It's garbage. It's trash. Like when we say the actors are bad, I hope Dom's putting in clips because there's some really bad acting in this.
So this was a really sad story to me.
I just felt super bad for Beverly.
They very much needed to find Gary as soon as possible. I was very much familiar with the lead investigator. We had worked together before, and we were definitely familiar with each other.
I really don't like that like last video or whatever has been deleted or whatever. Like if they would have had some stuff where like they showed a little bit of what he saw and then he went back to it, like building that more.
Yeah, build
I
up
would
to
like
a
that.
little. Or like he took a picture. Like he meant to take a video, but he accidentally took a picture, and that's
something.
And they just have a blurry picture of like what the house kind of
But
looks
at the
like.
same time, maybe they did, and like down in editing, they were just kind of like, it's way creepier if we don't show anything until the end. You know,
it's possible.
It could
possible,
be
but-
that. It could be that. I don't know.
Or they just didn't have a full location for the spooky house. Like, what if it was just like one little thing that was only visible from a couple angles, where like if you had shown it during the day, it might not have panned out as well.
Following that logic, because the prosthetics for the guy
might also not have.
Well, if you look at like the freeze frame at the end, because I was looking carefully at the prosthetics just because I wanted to see it for the third time, and I was like, oh, those prosthetics are not top notch. Like, you can tell that in daylight it's not going to look good, which is probably one of the reasons they filmed at night.
See, I was kind of trying to think, like, when it was happening, I was like, I get their dumb explanation why he's not doing it during the day, but like, why aren't they?
That is why I think
that
if
is probably
if they narratively justified it a little bit more, like he had some sort of plan where it's just like, okay, like this is where I think Sam Slade's idea of like having there be a 3-act structure within what he does could have been interesting. If he has like, this is the problem, no one believes me. This is how I'm going to prove that this is happening.
Or the best solution, in my opinion, is just make it more character driven instead of practical driven, where it's Gary's been spending all this time looking for this place, and he's obsessed with it, and his reputation's on the line, and he's been spooked. He's not been able to get this place and this feeling out of his mind since he's been left there. So he's now obsessed with it, and so he just does get there at night.
Anyways, wrapping it up.
Yeah,
conclusion.
Final. We don't do space eggs for Spooky the Week.
Do we not?
No, dude.
Yeah.
We don't do space eggs. We have
I'm
to do
giving it
space
space eggs.
The theme of this year has really been like trying to give smaller filmmakers advice. Like that's kind of the direction our overall channel has kind of been going, is like honing in on smaller movies.
It's our destiny.
And trying to figure out what you could learn from it, because it does seem like this was made by like a smaller team.
It's a pretty small team.
Yeah, I don't fault it for things that are it's low budget. I think the prosthetics look great, and they did a great job at
I was very spooked by that.
Yeah, the stuff that I think could have been better, like that they did do, is
pacing and story structure.
Nurtured those performances to fit the type of person they were. Because like with the detective, they should have been like, okay, this is not like they needed like a gruff old wizened like that.
Or
I've
just not that character at all.
He could have been cut.
Yeah, like just put whatever interesting things you like in his character stuff and just put them on
the reporter.
On
they
the
already
reporter,
have someone
on the roommate. Give the roommate something to do. Anything.
The roommate has like nothing of importance.
And then even after that, like I literally think the movie could have been much better if it had a second editing pass. Like I honestly think half of our complaints would not have been as bad if it was just 20 minutes shorter.
If we got to the scenes at the end, like even a good like 7 to 10 minutes sooner just would have made a world of difference.
Think about what the audience has heard. Do they need to hear this for the 5th time? Like, is this information so complicated that the audience needs to hear it again?
Gary wouldn't go in the woods and not come back. That just wouldn't happen. Gary can't do that.
Gary would never.
Gary would never go in the woods and not come back.
Gary would never go into the woods and not come back without his dog.
Gary is not like a hiker. He's a survivalist. So you want to remember is they say he's a missing hiker, but he's not a hiker. He's a survivalist.
And he always has his dog with
Call
him.
him a missing survivalist with dog.
Did you know he killed his parents with a boat?
The pacing could have been tighter, so that's an important thing to know when you're doing something like that.
So I'm less of a filmmaker than the rest of you.
This is true.
One of the things
He's a dreamer.
Yeah,
he's a survivalist
with dog.
I was wondering how much of this got affected by COVID, because I definitely noticed it in terms of not having more than one character in a scene, and even at night when they're having the guy in the woods. That's I think the only time where you know that there's 2 humans that are near each other, and it's still outdoors with separation.
Even then, it's the same thing if there's a cameraman.
So I guess my thing is like we were talking about, cut out some of that stuff at the beginning. There's a lot of repeated information.
The irony of us saying cut out the repeated information 4 times.
We literally.
I am curious what the sequel's going to be like.
Dude,
I was about to say, are you excited for this?
No, I am actually excited for this sequel.
We're doing a review of
the
the
movie
sequel
finally
when that
started for
drops.
me, and I want to see the rest of it. And it's like, once they're like, don't worry, there's going to be more of that movie. There, a bunch of YouTubers are going to go fight that one guy in the woods.
Putting myself in their minds, I could see them thinking, that's the movie I actually want to make. Is the movie about the influencers that go to hunt down the crazy guy in the woods, and then they're like, "Oh, what could we do in quarantine? What if we did a prequel to this movie where it's about a guy that goes missing, and it's just like the thing that kicks it off."
My concern is it's going to become a found footage film.
Something I hope that it would do is it's a little satirical. I think there's a little bit of wiggle room to do something that is not openly comedic, but I think that just the nature of the premise is comical and silly. Like the fact, like the sentence, influencers
David Dobrik going out in the woods. And
yes.
Being like, hey guys.
So
there is an opportunity to change things up completely.
Gary. I think that it could be a very fun movie. It's Jake Paul, or Logan Paul versus.
It would be a great Mr. Beast video.
I can take that guy. I saw the video. I can take that guy.
I've got 100 of my fans here. I'm gonna give them each $10,000 if they can track down this guy. If you die, you lose the money. This is 100 acres of Nevada desert. There's one crazy person somewhere in this. I bought this entire acre of land.
I bought this entire 40-acre plot.
And I bought 400
This guy
of my
is trespassing on my fucking property.
So I've armed a legion of 250 fans.
Lucky fans. The one that finds him gets $100,000.
Oh my god! And it is just a bunch of 10-year-olds with GoPros and
it's
guns.
A bunch of. They all have GoPros because that's how all the videos go. Go!
That's what I'm saying. The nature of social media and the way that like influencers work, it's like it's too ripe to not do something that's at least a little satirical. So I will be disappointed if it's just a found footage, like they're like schlubs that have 20,000 subscribers.
But you know what? It hasn't come out yet. I could be completely wrong, and we could all be delightfully surprised. And
because you're not excited for the sequel.
I think it's just going to be kind of a generic found footage film. I don't have high hopes, but we will review it when it comes out.
We'll review it when it comes out.
Sure.
Until next week, until the next spooky of the week.
Yes. The next week of October.
Yep. Week 2 of October. We'll see you then. Good night.
This is real spooky season that we're filming this in. Mm-hmm. The spookiest month of all.
Yeah, we're filming
September.
this in last October, 2021.
That would be smart. That'd be smart.
2021, 2 years ago?
No, last year.
Last year, I said. Do you know what year we're in?
Oh shit, we're not in 23.
You made me second guess myself for a second. I was like, "What year are we? What are you talking about?"
I forgot what year. Keegan turned 30, so this happens.
That's
pretty
true.
Years don't matter anymore.
No, once you turn 30, it all just...
He doesn't remember how to tie his shoes anymore.
No, 23, 25 doesn't make a goddamn difference. I'm gonna die soon anyway.
Yeah, Keegan's knocking on death's door, dude. He's 30.
Yeah.
That means he's halfway down the hill.
Yeah, no, he's got a foot in the grave.
I feel a little over half.
Hey, if he's playing his cards right, he's only got a couple good years left.
Look, dude, I'm aiming for 50. I just want to die before global warming destroys everything.
That's a good plan.
Yeah, so
I know how to deal with
He's
any...
hitting 32 for sure.